We are going to ask you to stand by because we understand that Marco Rubio is about to speak in South Carolina. You can see the close nature of the race. Here comes Marco Rubio. You see him shaking hands with Senator Tim Scott, with Congressman Trey Gowdy, and of course, the governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, is at the podium. Now the junior senator from Florida steps up to speak in South Carolina here on Newsmax TV.
Thank you. First of all, I want to begin by congratulating Donald Trump. We haven't had a chance to speak yet. He won here tonight. But after tonight, this has become a three-person race, and we will win the nomination. I also, a few moments ago, got to see on television, have not had a chance to speak to him yet, Governor Bush and his announcement. I have an incredible affection and admiration, not just for Governor Bush, but for his family and for their service to our country. Jeb Bush has many things to be proud of. He is an extraordinary husband. He's an extraordinary father. He was the greatest governor in the history of Florida. And I believe and I pray that his service to our country has not yet ended. And I thank Jeb Bush for everything he's did for the state of Florida and for running a campaign based on ideas. And I pray for him and his family tonight as they move forward in other endeavors in their life. Tonight here in South Carolina, the message is pretty clear. This country is now ready for a new generation of conservatives to guide us into the 21st century. For the time has now come, after 8 years of failure, to return to the Constitution of the United States that made us the freest people that have ever lived. The time has now come for leaders that will re-embrace free enterprise, which made us the most prosperous people that have ever lived. And the time has come to rebuild our military, because the world is a better, a safer, and more stable place when we are the strongest military in the world. We as a nation have faced troubling times before. In fact, 36 years ago, this nation faced a period of doubt. After a failed presidency, it felt like America was in decline, our economy was stagnant, and the American dream felt like it was slipping away. And then we elected a president that inspired us. A president who asked us to remember who we were and who believed, as we do, that America's greatest days always lie ahead. Ronald Reagan made us believe that it was morning in America again, and it was. Well, now the children of the Reagan Revolution are ready to assume the mantle of leadership. Now, those of us who grew up when it was morning in America and Ronald Reagan was in the White House are ready to do for our generation, are ready to do for the next generation what Ronald Reagan did for ours. And who is this conservative movement in the 21st century? Because our principles remain the same. But who are we? My friends, the 21st century conservatives are the son of a single mother who grew up in poverty and was almost lost. And today he serves this state as its junior senator, Tim Scott. The 21st century conservative movement is the daughter of immigrants from India who wanted desperately for their children to have all the opportunities they never did, who faced a string of prejudice. And yet, because of the greatness of our country today, Nikki Haley is the governor of a state where it's always a great day. And the 21st century conservative movement is the son of a bartender and a maid from Cuba, who tonight stands one step closer to being the 45th president of the United States of America. We are a nation and a people that celebrate success. We are a nation that admire people that have worked hard and moved ahead. And as conservatives, we will always celebrate success. But we fight for those who are still trying to make it. If tonight you are that single mother who has made it the purpose of your life to leave your children better off than yourself, in the 21st century, we conservatives will fight for you. If you are watching tonight and you are that father that works 2 jobs so that your kids could have all the chances you never did, in the 21st century, we conservatives will fight for you. If you're the 17-year-old high school student who wants a big future, and so you get up well before dawn to take 2 buses to a better school halfway across town, who gets home late at night to do homework because you know that God has made you for more than what people around you tell you you are made for. In the 21st century, we conservatives will fight for you. We will fight for you. Because we come from where you are now. Because we live the way you live now. And we know that limited government and free enterprise and a strong national defense is a better way forward for you, for me, for us, and for the United States of America. Tonight, to those watching at home, I ask you to join us in this effort. This has been a long road. There were many people on this campaign when it first started, many good people, many of whom in any other year would have been a front runner. But now, practically speaking, it's down to 3. And I know that our campaign gives us the best chance not just to come together, not just to unify our party, but to unify our country and to grow this movement. I ask you to go on our website. If you're watching tonight, I ask you to go on our website right now, marcorubio.com, and join our campaign. "60 years ago, a young couple from Cuba came to America in search of a new beginning, a second chance, a fresh start. And America changed their lives. Of course, I'm talking about my parents. 10 days ago, their son arrived in South Carolina after a difficult election in New Hampshire in search of a new beginning and a fresh start. And many thought it was over. Some had doubts about whether we would wind up here even now. For me, the state of South Carolina will always be the place of new beginnings and fresh starts. I know that God's hand is on everything. And so whatever God's will is in this election is what will ultimately happen to us and to our country. But if it is God's will that I should serve as the 45th president, if it is God's will that we should win this election, then history will say that on this night in South Carolina, we took the first step forwards in the beginning of a new American century. Thank you, South Carolina. Thank you. God bless you.
With special words of consolation for his one-time mentor and friend, Jeb Bush, who withdrew from the race tonight, a rhetorical embrace.
Future savior, he hopes.
And we'll get to that in just a second. We saw a rhetorical embrace of Ronald Reagan and gratitude to his supporters in South Carolina. Marco Rubio, the junior senator from Florida, now says it is a three-man race for the nomination of the Republican Party. Joined by Dick Morris here on the anchor desk, with us from Newsmax New York, Steve Malzberg, and from Newsmax Washington, Bree Payton. Dick, you have been sitting here listening to Rubio, but also taking a look at the unfolding dynamics. What's your take?
Well, I think that Bush will try to be the kingmaker. And I think that in the beginning, his PAC, which has bought a lot of time, a lot of airtime in Super Tuesday states, rather than canceling that time, may use it to attack Donald Trump or to attack Ted Cruz. And if they do that, that's the signal that Bush wants to be a kingmaker. Rubio's broke. Cruz has some money, but Rubio doesn't. And Bush does in his super PAC, $15 million. And I think that he's going to use that to try to shape this field. And then I think that the establishment is going to coalesce behind Rubio. They've got the go-ahead to do it now because of the tie for second place. And when they do that, you're going to see increasingly people saying it's a two-way race of Trump against Rubio. But here's the problem. If the voters who supported Cruz see it as a two-way race between Trump and Rubio, they are going to vote for Trump. They're not going to vote for Rubio. So in a sense, Rubio has a problem. The more he sells this as a two-way race, the more he drives Cruz voters to Trump. The more he says it's a three-way race, the more he keeps them with Cruz, and he can't get enough votes to beat Trump. Tough situation.
Yeah, interesting. We've heard about the Rubik's Cube, but this is the Rubio trap. Bree Payton, what do you make of the situation now? We heard Marco Rubio tonight, very eloquent about his chances and his supporters in South Carolina. Is the much vaunted momentum now with the junior senator from Florida?
I think he sounded really presidential in his remarks, and I think his comments about the new American century, and I think emphasizing that the Republican Party is the party that is trying to help those who are struggling to make it, I think really is what distinguishes him from other candidates like Ted Cruz. I think the fact that he is really branding himself as, you know, reclaiming the Republican Party as a party of ideas, as a party of conservatism is really important. And I think reminding people on the campaign trail that the Republican Party is supposed to be a party that's supposed to reflect the ideas of conservatism. It's not supposed to be a party of bailouts that just give them to different people, right? So I think if he goes and reclaims the conversation and kind of I think he will be able to reset the race and remind people that this Republican Party is supposed to be a party that reflects conservative values. And I think I think his story really resonates well with immigrants and those who may not be as, you know, wealthy or well off. I think his story really can resonate with them. And I think I think he will be able to make those people understand that conservative ideas and conservative principles and conservative policies are what will help those people. It's not bailouts, it's not giveaways like Trump is proposing. It is reinstating and reclaiming the conversation about conservative ideas and implementing conservative policies.
Thanks, Bree. Let me turn to my colleague up at Newsmax New York, Steve Malzberg. I appreciate what Bree has to say, and it is worth noting, Steve, that Senator Rubio spoke of we conservatives and a message of hope. But there is a real problem out there for him, and this doesn't occur in a vacuum. It may not have been successful tonight in South Carolina for Ted Cruz, but we have to wait and see. All the votes are not in yet. Rubio's embrace of amnesty. As facile as he is, as telegenic as he is, will Trump double down on the Gang of Eight and the amnesty as being the weapon to cast doubt on Rubio?
He might, but I also want to say, first of all, I think we do Rubio a disservice when we call him, and I guess it's for lack of a better term, the establishment candidate. I know what everybody means who uses it because it's obvious who he represents, but he's far from the establishment Republican in the establishment Republican Party. Maybe the exception on immigration to an
But
extent.
that's a pretty
He's not
huge
an
exception, Steve. That
Yes,
right out of the
but
gate.
he's not an establishment Republican. No, I understand that. But what we just saw was a great orator. We just saw a man who invoked Ronald Reagan and said, as a child of the Reagan Revolution, he's ready to assume the mantle. And then he described, look who the conservatives are today. I mean, this was a huge, look who the conservatives are today. A black senator, an Indian governor, and a Cuban presidential candidate. My gosh. I mean, that is powerful stuff. And by the way, it's worth noting that Trump said, hey, Nikki Haley, bye-bye, which he didn't really do completely after she trashed him in the Republican response. But he said, here's the lieutenant governor, who's much better than the governor of this state, by the way. So she's completely out of the picture as far as Trump goes.
Steve, when you say the establishment, it's not just a question of who's supporting him. It's that the voters believe that. In the exit poll for CBS, among those who described themselves as conservative, they voted for Cruz over Rubio by 9 points. Among those who described themselves as moderate, they voted for Rubio over Cruz by 17 points. So there's a real difference of opinion. And of the voters who say he shares my values, Cruz defeated Rubio by better than 2-1. So this really is a gulf. And in that gulf, you have Trump and Cruz on one side and Rubio and Bush on the other. And the underlying dynamic of the electorate in the Republican primary in any state is a majority for the anti-establishment. And therefore, it's hard to see how they can rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic to elect Rubio. I frankly think it's almost impossible for Rubio to win this nomination.
Almost impossible. It's almost impossible. I agree with you, Dick, but I think we have all, and the media has all called Rubio one of the establishment candidates along with, I mean, to me, he's nowhere like Bush. And I think that lumping him in, not you, but lumping him in as the media has done from the get-go as an establishment candidate alternative is unfair.
Let me go to our friend Bree Payton for her final thoughts. 20 seconds, the last word on this, Bree.
I think that the big takeaway is that this is a really bad night for Ted Cruz, and this is a really good night for Marco Rubio. And after just hearing his remarks, I think he sounds rather presidential and rather prepared, and I think he could really convince the rest of the country that he's ready for the job too.
Well, we will see what happens. Of course, the big victor tonight, who was exultant in victory from his headquarters in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Donald Trump, who prevailed tonight by over 10 points in this primary. We will see what happens in the race for second place. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about, and we will do so when we get back together as part of our regular programming on Monday. But for my colleague, Dick Morris,
just let me note
10 seconds.
Yeah, this race is narrowing a little bit between Cruz and Rubio. Rubio's still ahead, but by less
and we'll
than
have to stay
2,000
tuned.
votes.
Yeah, less than 2,000 votes. We'll fill you in on Monday. For Steve Malzberg, Bree Payton, and Dick Morris, J.D. Hayworth says check out our coverage at Newsmax.com. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.